Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Today we are going to be talking about a topic that, whether you're a homemaker, whether you are a wife, whether you are a housewife, whether you are honestly a girlfriend or a fiance, we, my friends, are going to be talking about nagging. Yes, nagging. Something that makes us feel like we're getting older and turning into that person that we don't want to be, at least in that one aspect. It's a tricky feeling. But it's also tricky for the men in our lives if we're nagging them. So I want to talk to you today about a few reasons we do this and why this may not be the thing that actually solves the problem that we're nagging about in the first place, and how to solve that problem. It's gonna be a little bit of a loaded video, but buckle in, grab your tea, coffee, or in my case, Red Bull, and we will be talking about this topic today. I wanted to give a shout out to one of my friends on Instagram. Instagram right here is where you guys get to suggest different topics and talk to me about different things. I'm very engaged on Instagram, and this was actually a viewer suggestion, so thank you so much. You are awesome and I appreciate our friendship. I think in order for this to be a fruitful discussion for all of us, what we need to do is to define what nagging means to us. And we also should have that conversation with our husbands about what nagging means to them. Because sometimes we believe that we are reminding them and they believe that we're nagging. Or, in my case, I was so worried about nagging my husband. Can't believe I'm admitting this to you all, but I was so worried about turning into a nag because that was so much of my childhood that instead of nagging, I just didn't frequently remind my husband to do things. And so we had a real conversation about that, and he's like, no babe, you're not nagging me, you're just reminding me. And that was when I was like, oh, because we all have different definitions, and in order to have a meaningful conversation about nagging, avoiding nagging, how to actually solve different problems and whatnot, what we really need to do first is to ask ourselves and ask our spouses what nagging means to us and to them, and to get on the same page with that. Hey Siri, what is nagging?
Nagging in interpersonal communication is repetitious behavior in the form of pestering, hectoring, harassing, or otherwise continuously urging an individual to complete previously discussed requests.
So we can see from this that there is a general definition of nagging to go off of. Nagging shuts down communication, and it makes our significant other feel insignificant. We don't want to belittle our husband, we just want things to get done. And so that's why today I'm going to show you how to do that and some of the things that have worked in my relationship. That is, at the end of the month, celebrating 7 years. And that leads me to tip number 2. The second tip that I have when it comes to nagging is to make sure that when we have requests for our husband, we're doing so in a loving way, keeping in mind all of the things that they've already done, especially if we are fortunate enough to have the privilege to be homemakers, housewives, stay-at-home mothers, or even just to be able to work less than our significant other. Because of the fact that we have more time on our hands to be able to care for household tasks, while they are out to care for, provide for, and protect our families. It's important to remember that the reason why they may not get to something right away is because they're burnt out. The reason why they may not get to something as soon as they get home, even though we believe that it's of utmost importance and it's one of our priorities, is because if they commute, just sat a whole bunch in traffic or dealt with public transportation, which if you know, you know. Yeah. So if they've done something along those lines, we need to give them time to decompress. Think of a time that you've been overwhelmed and you just needed things to just stop for a sec. That will allow you to remember the headspace that our husband very well could be in, and he just needs a few. It's not that he doesn't want to do it. It's not that he doesn't care. It's simply that he just needs to chill for a sec. And I find it helpful to, instead of going, hey babe, can you do this? As soon as he walks in the door, I find it helpful to instead greet him with a beverage of some sorts. Lately, it's been Mike's lemonades. Sometimes it's just a nice glass of cold water on a hot day. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but it shows that I care for his needs in that moment. And then I ask him how his day was. And then depending on how his answer is, if he, has to take a deep, long sigh before he answers, then I know that those priorities, depending on how pressing they are, can be put off for 15 to 20 minutes, if not until his next day off. Because we need to make sure that while we're at home, we have space and time to reflect and connect to ourselves and just decompress. We need to make sure, as an advocate to our husbands, that we are providing him that same grace, that same love and care. Because if he's going out and working outside of the home, he has a lot more trials and tribulations that he has to go through on a daily basis. And it's important for us to keep in mind that he does have to go through these things. Now, another thing that has been very helpful is having a division of the labor. And that is, I picked this up at Anthropology a few years ago. I'm not sure if they still have it, but it has a what, where, and who. And it also has a place to check things off. The reason why we don't check these off is because we've sat down with each other and we go, okay, this is a chore I don't mind doing, or this is a chore that I literally can't even. For instance, my cat's over there in the corner, but for instance, cleaning his litter box. Not my favorite. My stomach can't handle it. I don't know how I became a certified medical assistant, which I am if I wasn't able to handle that, but I don't know. And then things that, may require some more muscle, like taking out the trash. So we have things written out that we do every single week. And then we're able to check the list. It's magnetic, so it goes right on the fridge. And we're able to go, okay, I have a few minutes, I have a little bit of energy, I can get this thing done. And we have it kind of in our brains that this is what's expected of us. This is what we need to do. We have the same things week after week that are kind of expected of us. And then we have those bigger tasks or goals or chores that we need to get to and that we talk to each other about. And having this kind of long-standing thing really helps, because it's an automatic, okay, this is a part of my week that I need to get to. And then on top of that as well, something that really helps is, I know some couples who have adopted this practice from us, they say that they do it weekly. We kind of do it quarterly because that's just when it feels right. I mean, I don't count 4 times a year to do it or schedule it on my calendar or anything, but when we notice kind of a shift in the seasons of our life, what we do is sit down, talk to the other during our nightly communications that I cherish very much. And we ask the other, okay, how do you feel about the things that I expect from you? Do you still think that right now they're reasonable? Do you think that I'm expecting too much of you in this area? And for these important conversations, we take judgment and we put it all the way over there. And we also kick shame out of the conversation. because we want to make sure that our expectations are realistic, because sometimes, you know, with bosses, with customers, with client-facing roles, everybody else expects so much of you. And I'm not saying to settle, but I am saying that it's not helpful and it's a quick route to burnout if our spouse, our most intimate partner, is expecting so much more that's out of our grasp from us. It's not a good feeling for either in the relationship, and that's when nagging often happens. And so when it comes to nagging, understanding if we have clear expectations of the other, and if they're, I'm so sorry, my cat is snoring, and if they are reasonable to expect from the other, so that way we're on the same page, and when we have that part of communication, we're better able to understand what's expected of us, what we expect of them, and if these things are truly reasonable and realistic and feasible. It's kind of something too that I started doing with my clients when I expect them to get notes back, because I'm a copywriter. And I go, okay, they'll be like, oh, I'll do this, I'll have this for you Monday morning, bright and early, 9 a.m., right in your inbox. And I'm like, okay, I love that you're excited about the project, but does that feel good for you? Does that sound realistic? Because a lot of negative feelings and resentment can build up when we are promising something and not able to deliver upon it. And so having these conversations with whoever we're working with, but especially at home, are crucial to our health and happiness. Now, another somewhat common struggle is if we consistently speak lovingly to our partner, and we make sure that we have the whole respect thing down, but we have like a hairpin trigger when it comes to certain things, it's really helpful, instead of going, oh my god, why did you waste your time doing that? That wasn't the most important thing in the world. Oh my god, come on, what? Like, what are you thinking? Flashback to me 7 years ago. We go, hey, I love that you did this for me, or for our family, or that you took this off my plate, or that you helped the cat out with this, the children out with that. But as far as my priorities go at this moment, this is where I'm at, and then just tell them where you're at in a loving, respectful manner after you've given yourself a second to make sure that what you're saying is actually loving and kind and respectful and kind of on brand for your relationship and for what you want your relationship to be like. And then go, it was really great that you did this and I appreciate it so much, but as far as my priority goes, this is where I'm at. And I would really appreciate if you could do this before XYZ, and just give them kind of a time frame where you need it done by, so that those expectations are clear. Because without clear expectations, priorities can be mislaid. And on the other side of things, when it comes to nagging, is he did it, but he didn't exactly do it right. Or that's one of the things that it kind of took me a little while earlier, like a lot earlier on in our relationship, to realize it's like, did he not do it right? Or did he not do it how I would have done it? And that kind of helps you get out of that cranky mindset where you're like, oh, if you want it done right, you have to do it yourself. Like, how many times have we kind of mumbled that or like thought that in the back of our brains when we were like being all cranky and stuff? I know I'm guilty of not just thinking it, but also saying it. And that's not something I'm proud of, but it's something that I definitely have learned from and have grown from. And that's why our relationship's where it's at now, because we realize that we come from two different families. We come from two different childhoods. Heck, we come from two different like worlds, tax bracket and religion wise. And it was really important to me that we had those things in mind that were our differences, so that we could make sure that we were similar in things like love, expectations, kindness, gratitude, values. because there are things that are more important than how you wash a dish. There are things that are more important than certain things, and we're going to need grace sometimes too. Like last night, I was so excited. I made mini meatball sliders for like the very first time ever. It was awesome. But they ended up turning out not into ball shapes. They like fell apart in the oven. And granted, it was like the first time I ever made them, but also they ended up being meat clumps. And my husband could have been upset with me. Like, I promised him like meatball sliders. He could have totally been bummed out at me. Like, what is this? I'm gonna be cranky. I already had a bad day at work. XYZ. But instead he was like, those are very cute meat clumps. Thank you very much for making dinner tonight. It looks delicious. I can't wait to see how it tastes. He was kind about it. And that is one of the things I admire and respect so much about my husband. I could totally mess things up, kind of like I did last night, except I seasoned the meat well, and it was really yummy. It was just like a shape thing that was like wonky. It was just like a shape thing that was wonky. And he could have been cranky or rude about it, but he wasn't. There were times where I have messed things up a lot more than that. And he was still nice about it. Because he is such a kind and patient and loving man. And when you have those values together, that's what truly matters. And so making sure that you are gracious when you talk to them. And that if you do have something along the lines of, oh, they didn't do it right, or they did it in a way that I personally wouldn't have done it, but it wasn't wrong, like you weren't mad at it, you were just confused, that you talk to them. You wait a little while to kind of gather yourself so that you can be kind and forgiving and loving, like forgiving if there's anything to forgive, and loving. And then you talk to them and you go, hey, I noticed that this is how you did XYZ. Normally when I do XYZ, I do it ABC. But which method do you think is more effective? Or which method do you think is easier or more efficient, or like whatever word you want to use? And then you talk about it and you kind of get together and make a plan for it. This is how you're going to do it. This is like the household way, because you are forming a new household. You're forming like the man and the women. They will depart from their families and they will stick to their spouse and they'll create that new family. And it's such a beautiful thing, but it's also something that can be a little bit messy in reality and in progress and in getting it down pat. And so when you remember that, nobody said that it was going to be easy, but they said that it was going to be worth it, then you can more easily remember to not nag your husband, to give him grace, to make sure that you're communicating in an effective manner that doesn't hurt his feelings or invalidate the work that he's doing for your family, but also gets you the response and gets both of you to that finish line of meeting whatever goal it was, of getting whatever chore done or whatever project done. And having those check-ins is also really crucial. And finally, a huge piece of the puzzle that many of us really unfortunately miss is that appreciation and that gratitude part. Having an attitude of gratitude is so crucial, and many of us miss it. So how do you show appreciation? Well, it depends on your significant other's love language. It could be as simple as, you did a wonderful job cleaning these dishes. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Or it could be doing something that you know they like, whether that's making them their favorite meal or doing something not in the kitchen but in the bedroom instead. Making sure that you have that appreciation and that gratitude, figuring out which way to do it depends on your significant other's love language of what it is. Making sure that you add that appreciation aspect in there will make them want to do things for you in the future. You've likely given a gift before and it wasn't as well received as you thought it would be, and you were downhearted. You had put a lot of thought into this gift, or you put some work into this gift, or were wanting to show that you were thinking of them and you gave them a gift. And they weren't either A, grateful, or B, they didn't really seem as grateful as you thought or imagined they were going to be when you gave them the gift, right? You kind of, I mean, I don't know about you, but I imagine, you know, the person who I'm going to be giving this gift to, I imagine their face lighting up and being like, oh yes, this is the perfect item, I gotta get it for him. And that kind of thing. And then, how did that make you feel? Did it make you want to get them a gift in the future? Probably not as much as you would have before that interaction had happened. Now, think about somebody who you'd given them a gift and they were just so gracious about it, and they were loving, and they were thankful, and they really had that appreciation. They were touched. And how did you feel? You felt likely very happy that you had picked it up for them, or that you had found it, or that you had given it to them, or, you know, all three. And you wanted to get them more gifts in the future, right? And so with that kind of thing, it's really helpful to kind of think about asking somebody for something, like asking your husband to wash the dishes, let's say, and he does it. And how do you respond to that? Are you like, that's what you should have done in the first place, I'm not your mother, I don't have to tell you to do these things? Or were you like, babe, thank you so much, that took so much off my plate, I really appreciate it. We have this reciprocal relationship going, and you're the best, right? Which one do you think he's going to respond better to? Like, be honest with yourself for a minute. Growth never happens when you're lying to yourself. So just keeping that in mind after he does what, you know, you would ask him to do. Honestly, stopping nagging, it can be hard at first. Your tongue might hurt a little bit from biting it. I mean, trust me, I've been there, but I'm also here on the other side showing you that these methods truly work. Nobody likes to be nagged. Nobody likes to feel belittled. Nobody likes to be condescended to. And so when you know what your husband needs, and whether that's having some time when they come home just to chill out and decompress, whether that's being reminded, like my husband, he suffers from executive dysfunction sometimes, and because of that, he needs those reminders. It's not me nagging him, it's not, he should have grown up and like, I'm not his mother kind of thing. No, it's, he's a human, he has needs, these are his needs, how can I do my part in the relationship to fulfill those needs? And once we have that mindset, it becomes a lot easier to fulfill each other's needs and have that truly reciprocal relationship, instead of having bitterness or having resentment or having overly high expectations or really low expectations, which increase that resentment. You know what I mean? So hopefully this video has helped you, and please, 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 if you have a video suggestion, put it in the comments or visit me on Instagram, and I'll be so happy to see you over there, and drop me a suggestion there. I'm always open to feedback, and if there's something that you've found that really helps to just shut down that nagging, then what's worked for you? Also, leave it in the comments below. I can't wait to talk to you all again soon. Sending so much love to you all. Have a great day. Bye.